Our next guest I met 30 years ago. I was a young reporter, and a few years later I traveled to Los Angeles to cover Dr. Henry Lee at the trial of the century. The Connecticut crime-solving legend is still going strong, training a new generation of forensic experts. And he's 84 years old and super busy.
Yes, Dennis, I'm still working. You still work?
I'm still working. I'm still working. How many hours a day?
Probably 14 to 16 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Every single day. And you've been doing
This is the office of the esteemed Dr. Henry Lee. We're on the campus of the University of New Haven at the Forensic Science Institute that bears his name.
So student can learn that's female.
It's considered one of the top schools on earth for this type of study. Lee helped get it built and donated $1 million to the project.
So this become a national, international training center. We specialize in training law enforcement officer.
Lee has been a crime fighter and a crime solver for more than 60 years. Born in China, he later became a police chief in Taiwan before coming to America.
I usually tell them when I first come to this country, 1964, I don't even speak English. I say, this is the beautiful, one of the best country, but you have to work hard. You have to devote your life into your profession to build a future, not just sit there waiting for a handout. That's the problem today, our society. Nobody wants to work anymore.
Lee joined the Connecticut State Police and made a name for himself cracking cases that had investigators puzzled. He helped solve the wood chipper case, the first murder conviction in Connecticut without a victim's body. Richard Crafts murdered his wife Hella and chopped up the body with a wood chipper and dumped the remains in a river. Lee found a piece of tooth that forensic science proved belonged to Hella Crafts. Lee was also called in to help in some nationally known cases like that of Jeffrey Dahmer, which is riveting viewers right now on Netflix these days. He was also hired to help solve the murder of JonBenet Ramsey. And he was an expert witness 27 years ago at the O.J. Simpson trial, where I covered his testimony that some say helped acquit Simpson. But Lee still stands by it.
But they found his blood at the scene, right? They found his DNA at the scene.
At the scene, okay? But that time the DNA, it's not like today. It's he's in the ranch, okay? So whether or not a very close relative in the ranch or not, we don't know, okay? But also they found EDTA. EDTA is a chemical, it's a preservative. Should not presence in human body.
Lee retired from state police to focus on the Institute. And he's also become a big TV star in China with his own show.
I said, well, first thing, I don't solve case by myself. It's a team. Police detective, myself, and other scientists, and most importantly, general public. We have to work together.
It's one of the biggest shows on TV over there, though, right?
Oh, yeah, become the biggest. They have there's millions of viewers every night. So that's the program called Challenge the Impossible.
Lee is still called in to help on tough cases, and at the top of his bucket list is to answer the unanswered questions of the assassination of President John Kennedy, which he says was poorly investigated when the crime scene was still fresh.
We did find some interesting stuff, but unfortunately some of the original documentation is not there. The initial crime scene, autopsy, everything shouldn't go wrong, went wrong.
Cars drove over the crime scene right away.
Yes, exactly. The evidence, crucial evidence, wasn't collected.
In the meantime, Lee will continue to devote his life to teaching and researching, even if it means long days, which he says energizes him.
You have to do your best. As far every day, because we only come to this world once. Okay? Yes, I live longer than a lot of people. Just last week, another good friend passed away. I feel deeply touched, okay? You only have 365 days a year. Let's say we live to 100 years. How many days we have? Just think about it.
Yeah.
The average American Think about it. We only work 1,600 hours a year. We sleep about 3,000 hours, eat and play and waste the time. The rest are gone. So why should we do a little bit more every day? A little bit more. We can help the society, help our country.
Dr. Lee is just so devoted. It is Halloween week and the season for witches, but did you know that Connecticut once executed women and men for being witches? When we come back, the new effort to clear the names who died a horrible death just because of hysteria and suspicions of sorcery. You're watching This Week in Connecticut.